that's been years in the making. It's been with local resources, national resources, federal resources, and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to recognize the service that you and so many of your comrades provided to the United States during the Vietnam War. So, as part of the National Defense Authorization Act, which we just passed from the House to the Senate, I helped secure an amendment to make sure Hmong veterans who fought in the war can be buried in VA national cemeteries. You served us. You should be able to rest in peace in one of our cemeteries. It's your cemetery now, too. Thank you very much. The effort to ensure the Hmong soldiers receive the recognition and honor they deserve will continue. I thank you again for your service and your contribution to our community and to our country. A grateful... I think somebody wants me to stand up here all day. You know, we should get those students from Mapleton to just stand here and hold the flags. Anyway, before any more flags, before the wind kicks up anymore, I will wrap it up and say thank you for having me here today. And I look forward to continuing to stay involved in this project. And again, I want to thank my friends Bill Holen, Yang Chi, John Haran, and so many others for their vision and their hard work to imagine and inspire what will be a wonderful memorial. Now I'd like to introduce John Haran, Chair of the National Laumong Memorial Foundations. Thank you all.
Thank you, Congressman Perlmutter. We wouldn't be here without your support. We're so grateful for your support. We have Young Mi Lor, and please, Young Mi, would you like to explain?
Yes. So, Congressman Perlmutter, thank you so much for your time today. On behalf of the community, we would love to present you with this story cloth, and I'm going to give you a little bit of information about it, and anybody else who wants to learn more about it. The story cloth refers to Hmong needlecraft on a flat textile surface, and it's a part of a costume, or usually traditional designs that are depicting a scene, event, or narrative from Hmong history or culture. And the themes are life before and after the secret war. So on behalf of the Hmong community today, thank you, Congressman Perlmutter, and here is a beautiful sword cloth for you to take home with you.
I just want to thank you, and I want you all to know that you have many champions, many people who are very supportive in the Congress, whether they're in California, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and then obviously here in Colorado. And so in Congress, you have a lot of admirers and a lot of supporters. And Yang Chi knows that when he calls, I pick up the phone. So you also have a lot of political clout, and never be afraid to use it. Thank you for your service.
Share in our joy and the opportunity to honor the Laumong people for what they have been through. It's so important. I want to tell you something. This T-28 fighter bomber that you see in the center here, painted in the colors of the Royal Laotian Air Force, was purchased by, painted and restored to its original condition. Eventually, the plane will be repurposed to be placed atop the National Laumong Memorial. We're working with Mayor Seitz in the city of Westminster to identify an appropriate site. Our plane was piloted by board member and chief pilot Alan Cook. Alan, would you please stand? Alan is a board member. I would add that not only is Captain Cook a tremendous pilot, he's on the 737. He's also a certified mechanic, which we think is incredibly smart to have the mechanic be the same person who flies the plane. Flying in with Captain Cook today is Sgu Lieutenant Pao Yang, who was a T-28 pilot himself. Pao Yang, where are you, please? Would you please stand? Pao Yang was shot down, captured. He was tortured in prison. Eventually, he escaped Laos and made it to a refugee camp in Thailand. Lieutenant Pao fought with the SGU during the United States Secret War, conducted covertly by the CIA and the U.S. military in Laos from 1961 to 1975. We're honored to have you here with us, Lieutenant Pao. Two other T-28s. Marines earns about 50 gallons of fuel an hour, so this is a commitment and a gift to us that you're here. Thank you. I'd like to introduce members of the National Laumong Memorial Foundation Board of Directors and our Honorary Board. I will call your names and simply ask that you stand and remain standing. You're welcome to applaud after all are named. Youngmi Lor, SGU veteran CJ Yang, Vietnam veteran John Lumen, Chief Pilot Alan Cook, Van Cao, who comes to us from Milwaukee, Commissioner Bill Holden, and Yang Chi. I'd also like to introduce our honorary board members, Dr. Wapat Lee, Somai Sitase, and Wayne Seikau. Thank you all for being here today. And more importantly, thank you for your service. I especially want to acknowledge board members Yang Chi and Bill Holden. The efforts to bring about this memorial began long before I became involved. And their faith and persistence, despite setbacks, bring us to this day. Thanks to both of you, gentlemen. We appreciate you. I would also like to acknowledge the designer of the memorial. I hope everyone had an opportunity to see the mock-up of the memorial as you came in. The designer of that memorial is Mr. Ed Dwight. Ed, would you please stand? Thank you for being here. You can learn much more about this good man in an hour-long documentary on his life made by the Smithsonian Channel. Ed served in Vietnam as a fighter pilot. He became the first black candidate in the U.S. astronaut program. He's a world-renowned sculptor with experience creating national memorials across the country. His passion for our project was born during his experience in Southeast Asia, and we couldn't be more honored that this memorial is being designed and implemented by a patriot of this man's caliber. Ed, thank you very much. We're proud. The mission of the National Laumong Memorial Foundation is to acknowledge, honor, and educate the public about the more than 35,000 Laumong and over 700 Americans who died during the Secret War. We believe it is also important to represent the peaceful lives of the Laumong people, mostly farmers, who joined with the United States in the interest of preserving freedom and the fundamental human right of self-determination. In 1975, when the U.S. abruptly left Vietnam and Laos, thousands were left to face the communist Pathet Lao forces, as Congressman Perlmutter said. The Pathet Lao were determined to commit genocide on the freedom-loving people in Laos. Many Laumong people managed dangerous escapes to refugee camps in Thailand. Many then came to the United States, where they achieved more success in one generation than any other group of immigrants that I can think of. This is also a story the memorial will tell. Now, I'd like to introduce the Vice Chair of the Foundation, Commissioner Bill Holland. Bill served with the U.S. Army in Vietnam, the Colorado Air National Guard, worked as an aide to Senator Gary Hart, and later as an aide to Representative Ed Perlmutter. Bill is now in his third term as an elected Arapahoe County Commissioner. Please welcome Commissioner Bill Holland.
Thank you very much, John. I'd like to take a moment of personal pleasure and introduce Barbara Shannon Banister. Barbara played a significant role in the establishment and of the Aurora National the NAACP. And Barbara, could you just stand? She's been a very strong supporter of veterans throughout her career, and has contributed greatly to improving the racial relationships in our community. And I'd also like to add in that this memorial also symbolizes to the Laumong people and to all Asian people that the United States and the majority of our citizens care about you. We want to honor you, and we want you to be our partners in making this a better world. There is no place in this world for the hate that we see emerging in this country after so many years of positive support for our government and for the people in this country. Thank you. I'd like to just introduce some of our speakers that'll be joining us shortly. We're honored to have Mayor Anik Size, who is with us. Could you please stand? She has been a terrific supporter of this project. She has worked with the Laumong in her career, and we're very honored to have you here. In addition, I'd like to have Colonel Daryl Whitcomb stand. Daryl? Daryl was a Raven pilot flying out of Thailand, but flying into Laos and supporting U.S. air operations there. He's a true hero. He has written, I think, 5 books on the war, and I urge you to recognize his contribution to this ceremony. Thank you. I'd also like to introduce a long-term friend, a long-term personal friend, and a strong supporter of the Laumong, and that is Brigadier General Tom P.T. Guerrero. Tom served in the Air National Guard, and he's going to be here to present flowers to our Laotian widows. At this point, I'd like to have General Guerrero acknowledge General Guerrero, and also I think Major General John Barry is here. I don't see him in the crowd. He was supposed to fly in, but he is also an Air Force fighter pilot, as was General Guerrero during the Gulf War. Again, thank you. Thanks to the Go Thai Hmong dance group for their beautiful traditional dancing. And I'd like to, at this point, introduce Yang Chi and welcome him to the podium. Yang Chi was a former college professor. Okay. Was appointed to the City Council in December of 2013. And after serving 2 years, she was elected pro tem of the Westminster, and she was sworn in as mayor in 2021. It's my honor to introduce Anita Seiss.
Thank you so much for having me here today, and thank you so much, Commissioner Holland, for your dogged work on making today possible. On behalf of myself, the rest of Westminster City Council, including Councillor Rich Seymour, if you'd like to stand, he's here today. I'd like to thank the Foundation for inviting us. It's an honor to be able to participate in the inaugural event for the Laumong Memorial Foundation. As I was mentioning earlier to a few folks, before moving to Colorado when I was 11, I grew up in Fresno, California. The Laumong have been my neighbors and an important part of my community my entire life. And so this is a very special day for me indeed. I'm going to keep my remarks brief because as honored as I am to speak today, I'm here to listen, to hear the stories of service and sacrifice of this esteemed group. This group of people who put their lives on the line for a greater purpose. I want to be able to share those stories in the community. I think it's time that we've elevated those stories. So real quick, sorry, I lost my place here. I also want to say thank you to all of the veterans and those currently serving. Could those individuals stand up? All of you, thank you so much for your service. So Westminster, and please be seated, I'm sorry. Westminster is a city that values our inclusivity, our diversity, our inclusion. Today is a step towards honoring that visibly, and we recognize this is a first step in a long process, but it shows progress for this project. We are looking forward to continuing to work on this project with the foundation to make sure we come up with a plan that everyone can enjoy, participate in, and meets the needs of the community. Oh goodness. So before any more flags fly, I'm going to turn this over to the next speaker, but thank you for having us. We value the Hmong and Lao community, and we want to be partners with you.
Thank you, Mayor Seiss. The next speaker will be a true American hero who has chronicled the Secret War in several books and has supported the Laumong tradition and and veterans who served with honor in Laos and throughout all wars. Colonel Daryl D. Whitcomb graduated from the United States Air Force Academy in 1969 and went on to serve 3 tours in Southeast Asia as a cargo pilot and forward air controller flying the OV-10, then the O-1, with a group known as the Ravens during the United States Secret War. He flew combat missions over Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. Colonel Whitcomb was awarded the Silver Star, 2 Distinguished Service Cross for his service. He retired from the Air Force Reserve as a colonel in 1999, and then retired from Delta Airlines as an international captain in 2003. Colonel Whitcomb has published 5 books on aviation and combat rescue operations. Colonel, it's an honor.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. I had a speech prepared, but I'm just going to tell you what I think. It's very overpowering, really, to be here today in a lot of ways, to see the great soldiers of the SGU. I salute you guys. Those are the guys who flew the tangos with the Laotians, the Chapacaos, and the Nakatans. I salute you, sir. My wife and I just moved here just a few months ago to Colorado, something that I decided to do long ago when I was a young cadet in those wonderful, easy, carefree days down at the Air Force Academy. It only took us 52 years to get here, so I apologize for that. But now that we're here, we're going to stay because this is where we want to be. And I'm most pleased to find out that we also have a very thriving Hmong community here today and in this area, and we intend to be involved with you all. I look around and I see so many things and memories that I haven't seen in a long time. Women seeing the beautiful dresses from the different tribes. Takes me back to those days when I was up in Laos working with General Vang Pao and the units up there against our common enemy, the North Vietnamese. So what I would like to do today, just real quickly, we've already talked a little bit about Laos and the role that it played in this thing we call the Vietnam War, which was really a conflict that raged across the breadth and depth of Southeast Asia. We were involved for the better part of 15, 16 years over there. Originally, President Eisenhower was most concerned about Laos. He thought that that's where we would have to fight to stop the spread of communism. President Kennedy agreed with that, initially deployed our first task force, Joint Task Force 116, into northern Thailand in 1961, initially to stop the communist aggression coming through North Vietnam. Instead, our politicians and our diplomats got together and they wrote out a treaty called the Geneva Accords of 1962, which declared Laos would be a neutral nation. Wow, solved that problem, great. Don't have to worry about Laos. There was only one problem. The North Vietnamese didn't follow the treaty, and they took advantage of the wildernesses and the deep jungles and the mountains of the eastern part of Laos and turned it into a festum, which they then used to prosecute the war across the breadth and depth of Southeast Asia. People don't realize how important Laos is. Just look at the geography of that area. If I had a map in front of me, you would see right in the middle of Southeast Asia, to the west of Vietnam, to the east of Thailand, to the north of Cambodia, is this little country that looks like a pork chop, okay? It's called Laos. Very, very important geographical position because as the war developed and we got heavily involved in South Vietnam, the North Vietnamese realized that to get into South Vietnam, they had to go through Laos. If you take a map and you put one finger on Hanoi and you put another finger on Saigon and you draw a line, where does that line take you? It takes you right through central and southern Laos. And that's why it was so important. And it was there that the North Vietnamese moved a huge portion of their forces, their supplies, their logistics into southern Laos, and they built a thing we call the Ho Chi Minh Trail. They called it the Trung Song Road. They acknowledge in their histories now, I've read their histories, that it was the Trung Song Road that allowed them to unite Vietnam north and south. And it was there that in my opinion, the climactic battle of the war was actually fought. If you take that line from Hanoi to Saigon, about halfway down in the middle, there's a place called Chapone. In the local jargon, I think it was actually Zipone. Okay, starts with an X. It's a little village there. It's right in the middle of the Ho Chi Minh Trail. And in 1971, when our nation finally got serious about trying to solve that war, General Abrams put together an operation where South Vietnamese forces came from the east and Laotian forces came from the west to try to marry up at this place called Chapone. We flyers flew over Chapone many times. It was the valley of death. Not a nice place to go. And then in that climactic battle that took place in February of 1971, those forces could not meet up. They were too strong. They were too strong because the North Vietnamese soldiers knew that if we took the Ho Chi Minh Trail, the war was over. And we couldn't do it. We could not put enough combat strength in there. At the same time, the North Vietnamese wanted to have hegemony over Laos. So they were pushing strong forces out of the Than Hoa region through Sam Nua down into the Plain of Jars in northern Laos. And that was one continuous battle again and again, season after season, year after year, that took place as they tried to capture Luang Prabang, the provincial, or the historical capital of Laos, and Vientiane, the governmental capital of Laos, and we fought them off, and we fought them off primarily with Laotian and Hmong forces up there. You guys are the guys that held the line up there. Throughout that war, in flying in those different countries, I really had two missions. Doing tactical missions and at the same time working with the local air forces themselves, the Vietnamese, the Laotians, the Cambodians later on, to help them build up their forces to be as strong as possible, because we knew someday we were going to leave and it was going to be all on you guys. And for 6 months, through from September 72 to March of 1973, I flew in Military Region 2 for General Vang Pao, and my call sign was Raven 25. And I flew the little O-1D aircraft. And in fact, I checked my logbooks last night and found out that 49 years ago today, this morning, I logged 3 missions out of Vientiane, over the Plain of Jars. I don't know what I did. Got some gas at Long Chen. Remember that place, Long Chen? Yeah. And went on home. So, yeah, that's all I got in my log. So, Laos was key to the war. And you guys and your efforts were key to that effort, and I salute you for that. Now, let me tell you a few Raven stories. When we were up there working, again, I'm flying the little O1. I never flew the Tangos. The Tangos were our striker, and I think it's so appropriate that in putting together your memorial that you'll have a T-28 to it there to show. We had Army guys. We had Air America. Where's John? We got an Air America guy here with us today, too. Yeah, they supported. There you go, John. Thank you so much. Supported us. And together, as an alliance, we Air Force guys, our Royal Laotian Air Force brethren, the Lao and the Hmong, we were our own Air Force, and we fought that war like tigers. And we called the Tango guys, the Chapacaos, coming up out of Long Chen, we used to call those the Lions of Long Chen, because that's what they were. Great stuff, and they gave great support. Flying that little T-28, that's not a lot of airplane, to tell you the truth. I mean, it's a sweet looking little plane. We used to tease the guys that flew the Tangos because it seemed like they were always leaking oil. And one of the guys told me, he said, if I go out to the airplane and it's not leaking, I'm not going to fly it because there's something wrong. So we thought this problem through, and we decided that if the North Vietnamese ever developed an oil-seeking missile, these guys are screwed, man. Wherever they were. And when they got in trouble, they'd come up on that common frequency and they'd say, any Raven with heavily accent, more like N11, okay. We knew what that meant. We'd talk to those guys and they'd say, we're taking incoming artillery fire. That was the worst thing that could happen. We knew the North Vietnamese were bringing in their long-range 130 millimeter field guns, and these are very, very dangerous weapons. They can throw like 15 miles fairly accurately. And when those guns would start firing, that was a real danger to our troops. So anytime they would call us saying that there was a gun firing, we Ravens, we all knew about where those firing batteries were. We would turn our attention on there, and the North Vietnamese were masters at camouflaging those guns, okay? But there's one thing you can't camouflage about an artillery gun, and that's the muzzle blast. So the first guy who would see that gun, he would put his eyes on that gun, and he would keep his eyes on that gun, and he would fly over there, and the next aviation that was available, be it T-28 Tangos or Air Force F-4s or Navy, Marine, whatever we had, would go on that target. And I got to tell you, folks, when we found those guns, we killed them. Because that's what that war was all about. Could I have one of those bottles, man, please? There's a can of beer back here. Maybe I'll use that. Oh, thank you, Rebecca. Give me just a second. And I flew so many missions working with the tangos. We called them the Chapacaos, that was their call sign. And they also we trained some of their guys S4 air controllers too. One of them was a young guy by the name of Zhang Li Tu. I remember him. I can't remember what his call sign was, but he and I became good buddies, and we flew a lot of missions together. And whenever we could, when I would find a target, I would try to bring up the tangos because they needed the training and they needed the reward of being able to make their contribution to the war. They were very spirited young men. But there were places over there where we couldn't take the tangos. And I ran into that one day when I was briefed that there was a very large North Vietnamese supply cache being developed northeast of the Plain of Jars. We wanted to take that out. That was a dangerous country. I couldn't take the tangos up there, at least not on that day. So I got up there and I looked down there and I could see the target. So I decided to call for some air support. My controlling agency told me nothing was available, so I decided that I'd take a shot at this thing myself. So I rolled in, fired a couple rockets at it, got a little fire going, and when I did that, the North Vietnamese gunners down below realized what I was doing, and they all started shooting at me. And that was a problem, because you don't got a lot to